The waiting room of Sterling Heights Group was packed with job applicants. Some sat quietly reviewing their resumes. Others stared nervously at the clock. This wasn't just any company. Sterling Heights was one of the fastest-growing companies in the country, and everyone wanted a chance to work there. Among the applicants sat a woman wearing a simple black dress and a pair of glasses. She carried no designer handbag. No expensive jewelry. Nothing about her suggested wealth or power. She looked like an ordinary applicant. What nobody knew was that her name was Amora Williams. And she was the CEO and founder of the company. Amora had built Sterling Heights from a small startup into a multi-million-dollar empire. But recently, she had become worried. The company was growing fast, and she wanted to make sure they hired people with good character, not just impressive qualifications. So she came up with an unusual plan. She would disguise herself as an applicant and sit among the candidates before every major recruitment exercise. That way, she could observe who people really were when they thought nobody important was watching. That morning, she quietly took a seat in the corner. A few minutes later, 3 applicants walked in together. A man named Brian. A woman named Vanessa. And another man named Kelvin. They immediately began complaining. "Can you believe they made us wait this long?" Brian said loudly. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "This company acts like they are doing us a favor." Kelvin laughed. "Exactly. I heard the CEO is some woman who thinks she's a genius." The 3 burst into laughter. Amora remained silent. Then Vanessa noticed her sitting alone. She smirked. "Maybe she's applying for the cleaning position." The others laughed again. Amora simply smiled politely. "Good morning." But her greeting was ignored. Instead, Brian leaned closer to the group. "I've heard the CEO doesn't even know how to manage people." Vanessa nodded dramatically. "My cousin worked here. She said management is terrible." Kelvin shook his head. "If I become manager here, I'll probably do a better job than the CEO." More laughter. Amora quietly listened. Not because the comments hurt, but because she was learning exactly who these people were. Soon another applicant entered. A young woman named Zora. She looked nervous. Her clothes were neat but old. It was obvious she couldn't afford expensive outfits. She greeted everyone warmly. "Good morning." Only Amora responded. "Good morning." Zara sat beside her. A few moments later, she noticed that Amora had dropped a pen. Without hesitation, she picked it up and handed it back. "Here you go." "Thank you," Amora said. The 2 began chatting. Unlike the others, Zara didn't brag. She didn't insult anyone. She simply spoke honestly about her dreams. "My mother raised me alone," Zara explained. "I've worked hard for this opportunity. Even if I don't get the job, I'm grateful to be here." Amora smiled. Those words impressed her. Meanwhile, Brian and his friends continued their conversation. "Imagine being a CEO and still making people wait." Vanessa laughed. "She's probably sitting in some luxury office drinking coffee while we are suffering." Again, everyone laughed except Zora and Amora. After a while, an elderly janitor entered the waiting room pushing a cleaning cart. As he mopped the floor, Brian frowned. "Watch where you're going." The old man apologized. But Brian wasn't finished. "You almost touched my shoes." Kelvin laughed. "It's not like he can afford shoes like yours." The janitor lowered his head and continued walking. Zara immediately stood up. "Sir, don't worry. They're clean already." She helped move a chair so he could pass. The old man smiled gratefully. Amora noticed everything. Every word. Every action. Every attitude. Finally, the receptionist entered. "Good morning, everyone." The interview panel will be ready shortly. The candidates straightened their clothes. The room suddenly became professional. People who had been rude moments earlier now wore polite smiles. One by one, applicants were called inside. Hours passed. Finally, only Brian, Vanessa, Kelvin, Zara, and Amora remained. Then the receptionist returned. "Excuse me, everyone. The CEO has decided to personally address the remaining candidates." Excitement filled the room. "The CEO is coming. Seriously. I've always wanted to meet her." Everyone quickly adjusted their posture. Vanessa even checked her makeup. Then the conference room doors opened. The candidates stood, expecting a powerful executive to walk in. Instead, they watched in shock as Amora calmly stood from her chair. She removed her glasses, smiled, and walked directly toward the front of the room. The receptionist announced, "Everyone, please welcome our CEO, Ms. Amora Williams." Silence. Complete silence. The color drained from Brian's face. Vanessa nearly dropped her folder. Kelvin looked like he had seen a ghost. The woman they had mocked all morning. The woman they had ignored. The woman they had assumed was unimportant. Was the CEO. Amora looked around the room. "I've enjoyed meeting all of you today." Nobody said a word. She continued. Resumes tell me about your education." She held up a stack of application forms. "These papers tell me about your skills." Then she placed them on the table. "But character." She paused. "Character reveals itself when you think nobody important is watching." The room became even quieter. Amora turned toward Brian. "You were confident." Toward Vanessa. "You were intelligent." Toward Kelvin. "You had experience." Then she looked at all three. "But throughout the morning, I watched you disrespect strangers, insult people you had never met, and mock those you believed had less status than you." None of them could meet her eyes. Then Amora turned toward Zara. "Miss Zara." Zara stood nervously. "You treated everyone with kindness." Amora smiled. "You respected the janitor." She paused. "You encouraged others." Another pause. "And you remained professional even when nobody was evaluating you." Tears filled Zara's eyes. Amora then surprised everyone. "The janitor you helped this morning isn't actually a janitor." The room gasped. The elderly man entered the conference room. This time wearing a suit. He was Sterling Heights' head of human resources. Several candidates looked stunned. The man smiled. "Thank you for your kindness, Zara." Amora nodded. Today was never just about qualifications. She looked around the room. It was about integrity. Then she announced the results. Brian was rejected. Vanessa was rejected. Kelvin was rejected. Despite their impressive resumes, Zara was hired immediately. Not because she had the most experience, but because she had demonstrated something far more valuable. Character. As everyone prepared to leave, Zara approached Amora. "Thank you for believing in me." Amora smiled warmly. "No." She shook her head. "Thank you for showing me the kind of employee every company needs." Months later, Zara became one of the company's top-performing employees. She earned promotions, the respect of her colleagues, and eventually a leadership role. As for Brian, Vanessa, and Kelvin, that day taught them a lesson they would never forget. Never underestimate people. Never judge someone by their appearance. And never assume that the person sitting quietly beside you has no power. Because sometimes, the person you're mocking is the one making the final decision.